It is a refreshing change to read the news and see Israel repeatedly admired and looked to for advice. The Jewish homeland has been making Jews across the world proud by immunizing record percentages of its population against coronavirus, and dozens of nations are anxiously tracking Israeli data on the resultant drop in infection rates. We could proudly say, "Look at what our people can do," or "That's what Judaism is all about." We might go a little further and think back to our illustrious focus on study, dating back to the Shema's insistence that we educate our children, and we might see this as a beautiful natural outcome of our national culture of learning. Both these things are true. It is a beautiful thing that we help to heal the world, and our excellence in science, our famed prowess in winning Nobel Prizes, can be traced back to our zeal for knowledge and creativity. But the temple, the subject of Parashat Terumah, helps us to understand this more deeply still. The temple which the generation of Moses built in the desert was the basis for a more ornate version built hundreds of years later by King Solomon on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The book of Malachim, Kings, relates in 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 4 that the windows of King Solomon's temple were built in an unusual way. They were shkufim atumim. The Talmud gives a fascinating explanation of this. In the olden days, people used to maximize the light in their homes by having walls that slanted away from the window like a little alcove. Just like the reflective backing behind the bulb of a torch, these walls would gather some of the light coming through the window and reflect it into the room, maximizing the brightness in the room. The Talmud says that the windows in King Solomon's temple were fitted the other way round. The walls slanted away from the windows, not on the inside of the temple, but on the outside, as if they were fitted to let the light of the temple out into a dark world. What was this light which the temple shone out into the world? The Talmud says that this refers to the light of the menorah, which stood hard by the ark and symbolized the light of the Torah in the ark radiating out into the world. Just as light helps us to get around and do things, so Torah helps us to progress toward our spiritual goals and accomplish our life's tasks. Our primary task is to project this light out into the world. It may seem a strange thing to imagine all the Jews of the world learning and observing the Torah. It may seem odder still to imagine all the nations of the world watching 1/4% of them, us Jews, and paying attention to what we have to say. But the story of the Israeli vaccination program shows that such a dynamic exists. While our spiritual potential is not yet fully realized, we are bestowing knowledge and kindness on humanity, and the words that fall from the lips of those wonderful Israeli doctors resound around the globe in a message of hope. All the Jews who so loyally read our parasha this week are keeping alive the vision of a still greater destiny for the Jewish people, as teachers not only of medicine but of life itself, shining the hope of a life with God in our midst, across to the whole world. One day, the world will turn to us for that healing, as they do now for news on the coronavirus vaccine. And then we will know that our task is finally done.